So I survived the bee attack. If you've got no idea what I'm talking about, take a look at my last video. Attacked by a bee whilst sharing with you my favourite chakra book resources. Not exactly attacked by the bee. The truth of the matter is, the bee flew into my room and just did kind of bee things while I tried to talk to you about chakra books. And instead of just allowing the bee to do bee things, I ran around screaming and flapping my arms and trying to get the bee out of the room in the mistaken belief that the bee was going to somehow decide to sting me to death rather than let me carry on with my chakra book video. Needless to say, the bee did not sting me to death. I survived the bee attack, sting-free. However, I think the bee got its revenge in a subtle way. Because not long after that very dramatic incident, well, the incident wasn't dramatic, I was dramatic in the incident. After I was dramatic in the incident and ran around the room like a loon, trying to get the bee to leave by the window, not long after that, I realised that my back was out. You know that feeling you get when your back just that feeling of that band of tension around the base of the back where you just think, I have pulled something and this is probably going to get worse before it gets better. Well, so it came to pass. I did indeed get worse before I got better, because by the next morning I could barely walk. I was kind of tottering about like Mrs. Overall from Acorn Antiques, which will mean nothing to those of you outside the UK. But if you look up on YouTube, Mrs. Overall, Acorn Antiques, you will get some indication of how I was the day after the bee attack. But of course it wasn't the bee that put my back out, it was me that put my back out. Not necessarily because I was running away from the bee, but possibly. Possibly all the jumping about and jerking about did something to my back. So that was number one, sore back. Number two, stinking cold. That came next. That kind of scratchy throat, wheezy chest, burning eyes, stuffy head, stinky cold. That came next. And then the third thing, just to top it all off, I had a dentist visit on Wednesday of last week. 3 fillings. 3 replacement fillings. They weren't new fillings. 3 replacement fillings. And I had those fillings replaced. And the dentist, after doing the replacement filling, said to me, "How does that feel, Mr. Carr? You know how they test your bite to make sure that your jaw closes properly? How does that feel, Mr. Carr?" And I said, actually what I said was probably quite garbled because of all the Novocaine, you know, that kind of answer. But basically what I said was, I don't know how it feels because this whole side of my head is numb. But it feels a little bit like it's not quite fitting together correctly. And true enough, it did not fit together correctly. So the next day I discovered that every time I closed my mouth, well, basically my mouth didn't close properly because the bite wasn't right and it was sore and blah 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 blah. So I had to go back and have it adjusted, and I'm going back again tomorrow to have it further adjusted because it's still not entirely right. They say that these things come in threes. And I actually think, not that the bee caused those 3 things for me, but there is something, I think, in how I used the energy of the bee, or didn't use the energy of the bee. And instead of gracefully going with the energy of the bee and allowing the bee to share my space, I, from habit, from a sense of drama, from a consciousness that I was on camera and wanted to get on with my book reviews and recommendations, I didn't engage with the energy of the bee. I tried to cast the energy of the bee out. The lesson is, when a bee crosses your path, bear in mind a bee is not a wasp. Wasps are evil bastards who will sting you if they have half a chance, Bees are not that. So if a bee crosses your path, be the bee. Meld with the energy of the bee. Learn a lesson from the bee. Buzz off around your business, just like the bee does. Don't run around like a lunatic, flapping your arms and screaming at the bee to get out, because you're likely to put your back out. And in putting your back out, you're likely to just generally invite into your life the kind of energy that creates not pleasant dental experiences and crappy colds. So this week, I have learned my lesson, and I am going to engage with the energy of the bee. But the bee, of course, is no longer here. The bee eventually left. So, I have dipped into the marvellous Green Wheel Oracle, and I have pulled out the Honey Bee card. By the way, Andrea from Crystal E. Rama, wonderful channel, please subscribe to that channel if you have not already, pointed out that in one of my recent earlier videos, this very card was propped up on my mantelpiece. It was almost as though I predicted the arrival of the bee. Well, this week, this card is propped up again on my mantelpiece, and I am working with the energy of the bee. I am going to be the bee this week. So here's what it says in the Green Wheel Oracle book. Honeybee, work together. Honeybee is all about community, healing, oh, do I need that? And harmony, that too. This card suggests that your goal may be best achieved by working with others. Others like the bee. This can be a time for healing rifts. I want to heal the rift with my friend, the bee. Working to bring harmony to tricky issues, like dental issues and jaws not closing properly and backs being out and all that kind of stuff. Healing rifts, working to bring harmony to tricky issues and going out of your way to connect with others. Others like the bee. It can also indicate issues around communication. Clear messages are key right now. So my clear message is, the clear message from BCC is, when you meet a bee, be the bee. Don't chase the bee away. The threads of this card are community, healing, communication, and the sun. And it's also worth knowing that the bee has got a venerable history, and I'm going to just bring up a document that I created. As part of my process of engaging with bee energy, I have done some research into the meaning of bee. The meaning of bee energy. So here is a quote from a book by Frith Luton, a Jungian analyst, who wrote Bees, Honey and the Hive, Circumambulating the Centre, a Jungian exploration of the symbolism and psychology. Here is what Frith Luton says. Bees have been of high value and fascination to humans for millennia, venerated yet feared. So I'm not alone. The way a hive of bees lives and works tirelessly in the service of its queen and to produce honey, a marvellous golden substance, is a living mystery. As honey producers and crucial pollinators of the plants that provide food for humankind, bees are like the saviours of the macrocosm mentioned in alchemy. And in the book it goes on to say, the bee features in the creation myths and the religious and cultural symbolism of many peoples. The symbolism of the bee is vast, linking heaven and earth, God and man, the plant and animal kingdoms, sky gods and earth goddesses, including the supreme sky gods, the sun gods and the Great Mother. Honey, and the nectar it is made from, is almost universally regarded as the food of the gods. Ever since humans first discovered the sweetness of honey and began searching for wild hives so they could harvest the honeycomb, the bee has been venerated and seen as one of the wonders of nature. Bees are social and industrious and committed to the health and welfare of the hive. They are beautiful, but also terrifying in that they have a powerful sting and venom and can act en masse. They can become very aggressive if an insensitive human being or animal disturbs their hives or threatens to rob their precious honey stores. Clearly, my little friend the bee, who visited us in my last video, was not being aggressive, was not attacking me en masse with all of his chums or her chums. It was just being a bee. There's a lesson in that. And finally, I will close with a quote from Jung himself, and this is from the collected works of C.G. Jung, the last collection actually that he put together, his last piece of writing, Mysterium Conjunctionis, volume 14, an inquiry into the separation and synthesis of psychic opposites in alchemy. And this is what he says: in the honey, the sweetness of earths, we can easily recognize the balsam of life that permeates all living, budding and growing things. It expresses psychologically the joy of life and the life urge which overcomes and eliminates everything dark and inhibiting. Where spring-like joy and expectation reign, spirit can embrace nature, and nature, spirit. And I will close with that. And I, BCC, and Honeybee, wish you... Now that was either a fly, or the bee has returned. I'll see you soon. Take care, everyone.